Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series live here from Montreal in Canada as we round out our round of 16. There's only a couple more matches left to go. I'm your host, Nathanius, as always, joined by Pig and Rotterdam as we make our way into some nice Terran versus Zerg action. But most notably, Roddy, another Dutchman is coming up to play.
And this is one that I think has been shining over the last few months. Obviously, I think it's safe to say that Austin was the big disappointment for uThermal this year. But other than that, he's been looking good. And with uThermal, it's also very important if he's been looking happy, and he absolutely has been. He's very confident. He had a very tough round of 32, if you ask me. A group with Nerdcho, Harstem, and Scarlet. And I love what he said on stage. Everyone told me, that's going to be tough. And he's like, is it though? Will it be? I don't think it will. And it wasn't for him. He just aced the group. I have a lot of faith in uThermal. I think this is the best uThermal we've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, when he's got that confidence going, he's a very different beast to the uThermal, which comes in where he's usually very frank when he's not confident about how he's going to do in a series. When he's not feeling it in practice, he kind of goes in and he says, you know what, I'm going to play a little bit wild. I might do some cheesy games because I really don't have that much confidence in my straight-up play. But this tournament, he's been looking very powerful.
When it comes to like analyzing how good a player is, it's obviously easy to focus on the big WCS stops and stuff and take a look at how far they went. And for uThermal, that's been very inconsistent. But I think something you can judge him as well are his performances in Challenger in general. When a lot of the Europeans say it's already very tough to get into Challenger, right? And making it into the top 8 is even tougher. Take a look historically how well uThermal has done in Challenger. That's actually insane. He always qualifies without any issues, either through the ladder or just the very first qualifier. Pretty much always wins his group in Challenger. This man is guaranteed top 8, top 4 at almost any Challenger, and that's a real European premier event, if you ask me. And I think that goes to show how strong he truly is.
So the question I'm bringing to both of you now, this hopefully, I think this is a bit of a tough one because for a lot of people coming in online, they don't see Denver as much. They don't see this guy competing at this high of a level. Why should the people tuning in believe in him? Why should they invest themselves into this player? Tell me something about him. I feel like he comes in as a big question mark in this round of 16.
That's exactly how I would define him right now. You know, in this matchup especially, I think Zerg versus Zerg, and to some extent Zerg versus Protoss, we've seen Denver go from strength to strength. This is a guy who was in the Grandmaster ladder in the lower rungs for a long time, and he started committing more and more and training harder. And he's worked his way up, and we've seen him with some very impressive wins this tournament. But it's hard to see what his Zerg versus Terran is like. And me and Kev were just discussing, and we were both looking through the stats, and we were kind of digging. We're like, where are the results? And there's just not that many. He's been playing in EU tournaments, and he's like the occasional run into Clem.
That's pretty much all he does. If you want to know how his ZVT is, you take a look at all the games he has played against Clem over the last 6 months. That's pretty much the only ZVT he officially plays. One series against Aquarion, and Aquarion is good, a very young, up-and-coming Spanish Terran player, but that's not a uThermal type of play. That's not a Hero Marine. So it definitely is a question mark. I have a hard time believing that Denver comes in here as, you know, even foot or even as the favorite. I absolutely lean towards uThermal, and that's not because I'm Dutch or biased, guys. I just think uThermal's the more accomplished and better player in this matchup as well. But Denver has been improving rapidly, and his story is maybe a tiny bit similar to Shadone, but I feel Shadone is a little more weird and gimmicky, and Denver is a little more solid, good Zerg play.
All right, let's bring the players out onto the stage as we get into our next round of 16 match. We've got the up-and-coming Zerg up against the Dutchman himself.
You're right, indeed. The Dutch Terran is looking to secure his spot at the Global Finals at the end of the year, while this French Zerg is looking to continue his best run at a premier event yet. Please welcome, it is uThermal and Denver.
What is sure to be the struggle of a Terran versus Zerg. uThermal is a player that has had a lot of respect in the European scene, one of the best non-Korean Terrans that we have. He's taken championships around the world, and he is going up against somebody that is really trying to make a name for himself, we would say.
Yeah, this is the best run he's ever had. I mean, he finally broke into that top 16. But Denver is not a guy that has been around for 6-7 years, going through all those lands, and finally, I mean, this is technically only his third WCS event ever. He did Valencia last year. He did the most recent Valencia, where he made it into the run of 32. That's already very respectable. And now in his third try, he's already making it into the playoffs. So that's definitely an impressive rise.
Yeah, he's kind of come out and started to really move things up a notch. And it's funny because you mentioned before how he's a little bit more solid than someone like Shidone. It's interesting because I remember back in the day when he was kind of coming up very mid-game focused, lots of like big roach timings and this sort of thing. But I feel like there is a bit more depth into the late game now, the later stages of the mid-game. He techs up a little bit more. What worries me about Denver is that Zerg vs Terran is a very mechanical matchup where when you're playing on stage, there's a lot of pressure. uThermal's the guy who's going to micro every unit. He's going to multi-prong. We've seen uThermal in these scrappy games. He's going to pile the pressure on hard.
And he's also a player that brings in the aggressive cheese builds as well, Roddy. So Denver's going to have to keep his cool in this series is on top of that.
Yeah, I love what Pick said there. Like, it's obviously different playing on a stage and playing a high-pressure, fast matchup as well, like ZVT. Like, ZVP can be a little bit more decision-based, you know, and just build up those armies and kind of shove it in. But ZVT is often non-stop action. And we saw uThermal earlier this weekend against Scarlet. Scarlet did not look bad in his games. uThermal just looked freaking awesome.
Yep, TvZ, very momentum-based, especially if uThermal is able to get that early damage in. Do you guys see anything that stands out to you as a key to success for Denver to make this upset?
I think the real thing we see in general in Zerg vs Terran, it's not necessarily a uThermal thing, but I guess with him being more aggressively and momentum-based, I guess it's more important. It's your ability to just defend well in the first 5-6 minutes of the game, right? The Terran players are looking to surprise, and it's all those little details where we see someone like Serral who's always got the queens in position blocking the Liberators, always having those creep tumors spreading quickly. I think that build-up in the early stage sets the pace for the rest of the match.
Yeah, this is perhaps a little cliche, but it's so important for Denver that he makes it through the first 5 or 6 minutes of the game without losing 12, 14 drones. Like, and that's obviously sounds very standard, but especially against someone like uThermal, once uThermal starts going, there's almost no stopping him in this matchup. But if we can criticize uThermal on just one thing, is that he definitely loses his cool in best of fives, right? He can really kind of go on tilt a little bit.
All right, let's see if he can keep things cool then, or if we can have a big upset from Denver. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our next match here at the World Championship Series.
Okay, we got to get these intros done real quick. I am Zombie casting with In Control, and we are getting into a Cerulean Fall. And this guy right there, he's got some tricks up his sleeve. As we get into the game, you can see a couple of SCVs are gone from that mineral on the top right. As the blue Terran for Team Liquid, he is uThermal.
Cheeky, cheeky. And his opponent on the lower left-hand side, I thought the guys at the desk broke this down really nicely. An up-and-comer, it's a Zerg player from France, Denver. Look at that mouse, by the way, behind the keyboard, kind of an FPS style. It's very interesting.
Yes.
A little bit different. But
Not quite the weirdest we've seen. I think Sheth was weirder.
oh, well, yeah. There's a name that a lot of people are going to go with. Anyways, Sheth played with the keyboard on his lap for people that did not know that. He had wrist issues. Really incredible. But this game is picking up speed here, and uThermal's going to go with the proxy double barracks. We actually haven't seen a whole lot of this tournament. And with that gas, is that factory back at home in Marines, or is it Reaper?
It's going to be the factory back at home.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, you want to get a bunker up, but Denver did open with a pool first. So not like an early pool, but a pool first, which should set him up nicely here. Assuming that he gets a couple of extra lings, too. Yeah, so, I mean, this is twofold, right? uThermal is a well-known tier-axer. It's a smaller map. It makes sense for him to be aggressive in the very beginning of the game. So you have the defensive property, which checks out really well right now. But you also do have them, if it isn't a proxy, to send across the map. But, of course, they're going to be used defensively.
Well, let's see if Denver can capitalize on this really nicely, because like you said, this is what you're hoping for with that. Maybe a Reaper across the map, and then you go ahead and get a cancel. But he goes right past the bunker and says, nope, I just need one Zergan to stop that from getting to completion. And even if it does, the Zergans can jump on top of these low-count Marines. He's going to get over here, and the SCV doing some body blocking, and actually kiting backwards, doing a pretty good job of killing all the lings there.
I don't know if it was...
And the bunker finishes.
Yeah, that wasn't worth it if it meant if the 4 lings would have helped kill the SCV build in the bunker. I think that was not worth it. So...
Yeah.
It's very awkward indeed, as of course there's a spine crawler away, need a couple extra lings, but they can't really help out too much now. He does at least type 1 SCV, and looks like uThermal. He was already mentally prepared, I believe, to have to transition away, so now he's got a bunker up. He's kind of saying, like, well, at least I have this. But he's getting a factory back at home.
I mean, like you said, though, it's just not ideal. If you pick off that SCV and it doesn't finish the bunker, the Queen walks down, and then it's just done. Like, 4 Marines outside of a bunker that's not finished aren't going to do much in that situation. But Denver reached for the stars a little bit and came short. Now, as you said, he's in position to hold this off. It shouldn't be the end of the game. He definitely shouldn't lose his hatchery. It's just any additional damage is a shame. It's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. Reaper, I mean, not a Reaper. The SVD barely even gets any repair, and that bunker with the full surround just basically, I mean, that's a lot of Lings to lose and a decent number of Marines to retreat from because there's no speed, notably, which gives Denver like a few extra workers potentially to work with. But I don't know, like this, we see worse Tyraxes able to recover, basically. We're going to have like a lull of not much happening. Maybe the Hellions will patrol a little bit. Maybe Denver will do something aggressive to kind of like, gotcha moment in return. But but if you're going to wait till like those medevacs, then it's really like, can the medevacs do anything? But that's a long ways away.
Well, as you say, the aggression. I'd like the fast lair here because I think that's going to be a Nidus. And with 3 queens already, you add a few more on top of that. Any Lings pop out against just probably the 1 factory production. You're in a really, really good spot. And I think that's a tough hold for uThermal. Now, this barracks getting close to scouting that lair. And if it does, which it absolutely will, I feel like that's what you see. You saw no gas at the natural, so you're not thinking Spire. You do see the Roach Warren, but the lair doesn't really enhance that much at all. It pretty much has to be Nidus. And the thing about this for Denver is he doesn't have to go forward with it, but it looks like he will.
It's
not.
Yeah. Target fire. Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
That was close.
5 health.
It's hard to say because like the barracks is so likely to scout. It just has too much health, right? Even if there's like 5 queens, it probably still barely gets the scout. Maybe he was thinking more like to make sure he has an overseer.
Yeah.
Because like Banshee can be a typical follow-up because it can help against the maybe Roach counter. But yeah, Terran's kind of moving away from Cloak Banshee, and while uThermal might eventually get one, he is going for a potential Hellion drop. Yeah, he doesn't have an armory, so unless he adds armory now. But yeah, Hellion drop, there it is. So that lair's not going to help him with that, but the Roaches could be in position.
I do feel like the lair was, again, going to be possibly the Nidus. I do agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's a number of things you could have done there. But that being said, with that first overlay getting picked off and the second one at least committing to the idea of trying to scout, this is only just now being spotted. And Denver doesn't have a lot of units. There's a few Roaches, there's some Queens, but they're a little bit spread out. And the Hellions have a pretty good opportunity here. Nice wall off, though.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there just aren't enough Roaches to really carry them that fast, so a couple of nice shots.
Well, only 3 so far.
Actually, that was a decent amount, yeah. Sorry, of Roaches, so 3 drones, not too bad.
It's okay. The problem is it was already a low econ situation, so I'm not saying that uThermal's like miles and miles ahead, but these little moves are very low cost for the Terran. Like, again, only 3 drones, a little bit of missed mining time, whatever, but it's just Hellions. They don't really commit to later. The factory in and of itself, not that important of a production facility at this moment in time. So all of this is just nice little, little damage, little chip.
You know, that lair, it gave him some pretty quick Roach speed, and he's moving across the map. I mean, he didn't know for sure it wasn't going to be a Banshee follow-up, but he's definitely figuring it out now as a Liberator comes in on a Banshee. So the Banshee would have been so helpful here. Wow. He tried to get some Cyclones to help a little bit, but he just did not see the Roaches moving across the map.
And they're just here. The Cyclones are going to be buffered by the SCVs, excuse me. Damage being done on both sides are like racing to see who can hurt each other worse. The SCVs are getting the worst of it for right now, but just by a little bit. Queens finally move over there to relocate to the natural. The micro is intensive on both sides of this. The Roaches, I feel like, do have the power to potentially end the game, but there's also a Liberator here. And so many drones and SCVs have died. It's down to 2 workers for Denver. He's got to end it with these Roaches for the most part.
This is so weird.
He does get up the ramp.
This is so weird. If uThermal had kept a reactor on his factory, by the way, I absolutely think he wins this game. He's already got 2 extra Cyclones. But waiting for a tank isn't really going to happen. He's just going to tap out. So many drones were killed. But at best, uThermal is going to try and base trade that, right? So uThermal just taps out.
Okay.
And base trade, I mean draw, of course.
Yeah, I mean, end of the game, it was 2 drones to 3 SCVs. And yes, he's got mules, but there's a good 8 or 9 Roaches in the top there. They were killing the final tank. Yes, there's a Liberator, but it's all the way across the map. So if any of you are wondering if that was too quick of a lead, I don't think so. There were still Queens. There was still the ability to kill the Liberator. But what a crazy game. And you know what? Zombie Grub, you pointed it out. It was that Roach speed that enabled this to happen. If those are slow Roaches, that attack doesn't happen. It doesn't go down as nearly as effectively as it just did.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some question marks about the lair, what it was really for. But like that was certainly a good use of them. I think any any type of roach attack, because that's also a short map, right? And even without roach speed, that many roaches just going without being seen was really the main problem. And I was just about to be like, well, he really needs to keep tabs on these roaches, and then they were already halfway across the map.
Yeah.
It's like, well, time to talk about his lack of Banshee, because he's about to take a lot of damage.
It was so decisive, though. He had that Overseer, which you pointed out being made very soon after the lair as well. And it was just kind of flying around unscathed around that Terran base. And he's like, look, if you're not going to make units and you're going to the units you do make are going to go across the map and harass me, then I'm going to have an open opportunity here. And he took it. A lot of players, I think, would not necessarily have done that. They would have been like, oh, wow, there's no units there. I'll use that to take my third and saturate and drone. But Denver pounced, and he might have just snatched a win for himself away from what could have been a defeat.
Yeah, if that Liberator's at home, the SCV block is so much better.
Yeah.
Or again, there's 2 extra Cyclones instead of waiting for that tank. Very tiny things could have changed that game to be in uThermal's favor, and he did. He's the one that caused that to happen, right?
Yeah.
He 2-racks, he was the one that made it weird, so he loses it. Hopefully he can shake it off, as uThermal is the expected one to take this series. Denver is looking to advance what is already, I believe, the greatest WCS he's ever had.
Yep. And I like what Roddy said at the desk as well. He went to the round of 32 at Valencia, and now he's in the round of 16. If he keeps up at this pace next year, he could be a real threat in this WCS system, as he is showing signs of top-tier play. We're going to enter into map number 2 here, though. It is Acid Plant, and in the lower right-hand side, the Dutchman, uThermal.
The top left. Let's get a little ahead of myself here. It is the red Zerg Denver. Taking that surprise first game, but the reason I was getting ahead of myself was that gas was not being canceled. So I was like, hold on here. That's not an extractor trick.
Oh, wow. That one is.
Okay, all right.
But with the gas that fast, Zombie Grub, it has to be one base Ravager, question mark? Or is there anything else you do with this?
Well, it is actually really the faster one. So there's definitely one base speed. I thought it was a later pool to do that. So but I think you need 2 gas through the roaches. So if there was one base speed, you just send them out trying to get pretty much do get the kill in the command center.
Well, you must, right? Otherwise, you're in a lot of trouble.
You are in a lot of trouble. So uThermal's probably not going to SCV scout. But if once he gets attacked by this, the next games, I think he will SCV scout. So you do have, the speed starting, and then 6 slings already on the way. So, this is, I'm not, I'm so amused with this. It's 2-racks, and then it's the Zerg now is the one that's doing something silly, but with Denver having that surprise first victory, if you could carry the momentum into a quick second early lead, which I think he's going to get. I just think that this command center is his unless he messes up. Or if he tries to go into the main and actually manages to do so. If there wasn't raised that depot, it's actually just game over.
Yeah. You know what, though? I like this in the best of 5 because if you get 2 racks game 1, very likely the Terran returns to a more conservative kind of slower approach in game 2. And one of the ways you can do that, you can cut that corner is not SCV scout, low ground CC, all those kind of normal things. These Zerglings just squeeze around outside the vision of that Reaper, and they're going to show up. And as Zombie Grub's been pointing out, when you invest this much into this kind of timing attack, you're really not just hoping to pick off the SCV and slow it down. You need to cancel that orbit, or that command center, excuse me, and maybe get up and get more.
He's gonna depots.
Wow.
He's actually going to let the Lings in because he thinks it might just be the 6, but it's definitely more than that.
Yeah, okay, speed finishes, he's got to be like, well, not today.
Yeah, then you got to raise those depots. Okay, so he cancels the command center. He realizes very quickly, like, oh, okay, that's what's going to be. And that would have been a lot scarier if Denver had waited for speed and then ran in the lowered supply depots.
Yes. If you would have ran into the main and then just kept running around, and the reinforcing Lings, of course, get the cancel on that low ground CC, I think that would have been the nightmare scenario for uThermal.
Yeah.
The scary thing that happens here is he's trailing 0-1 is our blue Terran, but also he now has no map vision whatsoever. The command center, of course, is delayed, but that kind of equalizes with the opening of Denver. But he doesn't know what's going on up there. There's speed Lings, so his Reaper dies. If he makes a couple of Hellions, he needs to wait for more than just a couple to get out on the map. And really scary stuff can happen behind that. A Baneling bus, roaches, or just like 3-hatch macro play.
Yeah, exactly. With the Reaper dying, I mean, he saw, at least he's not like a 1-base Baneling bus, something super weird. But right, he doesn't really know what the plan is. And even if it was just these Lings, he needs a decent number of Hellions to break out. And transferring the reactor, by the way, to the factory is even a little bit of a risk.
Yeah.
So.
And I love this scout here from Denver. Oh, well, I like it. I don't love it. Love is the next level of commitment to that what just happened there. We're not there yet. Gotta work on that.
It's such a weird opening timing. Like, it really does offset a lot of what Terran does. But, like, if this is a normal opener, I think the starport timing would have told him there's a third CC.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like real high-level read right there.
Yeah, but again, like, it's a little thrown off, so I don't know. But the overload's going to try and get back in. It really wants to see what's on the starport, primarily.
Did it see the tech lab?
Yeah, no.
I think so. Just outside of vision. It did see the starport, and it was swapping.
Right.
So the likelihood of that being a reactor swap is kind of low.
Yeah.
Lower than a tech lab, I would say, I guess.
Yeah, because like like the marine drop we saw yesterday just wouldn't really, again, off this opener.
That's the weird one these days.
I don't know if that would be the tricky thing to do. But anyways, we got a Balianus on the way for Denver, +1 melee. He's keeping tabs on things, all right? Like, in the same way that uThermal has lost scouting for Denver. Denver, if he was a greedier Zerg, and we have some Zergs that just don't even bother overload scouting, right? Like, he could have been in the dark as well, even though we know it was a third CC. Could have been Armory, could have been double port Banshee, right? Like, but he's trying to really read into what uThermal's doing, and I think he's got a good idea. uThermal now does bother to scan, so you know he is quite concerned about what could be following up.
And he sees a Baneling nest, but he also, I think, we didn't get visual confirmation of this, but the timing looked like it. He might have seen additional, like, 6 or 8 lings pop out. And he already knows there's a good grip of them out there, so that might sell him on the fact that there's some pretty scary stuff developing out there. Now, with his build, there's not much more you do. You don't necessarily drop 15 bunkers or something like that for the 2 Marines you have. You just get the siege tank out, and the Banshee's going to go get that confirmation as to whether or not you're facing an aggressive Zerg or not. It's a cloakless Banshee, by the way, and I kind of like this play. At first glance, it's like, well, what kind of damage can it get done? But if there's any kind of slow roaches, any kind of ravagers, it absolutely annihilates that kind of a timing. So it's a little bit of a safe play. And if you think you're the better player, that's the kind of way to go about it.
Absolutely. And we saw this from uThermal, maybe it was against Scarlet, maybe it was yesterday, but like the safety Banshee, I like to call it. If you bother getting a Banshee, you usually get 2. If you only get 1, I think you're just actually, besides scouting too, you're actually just like, well, this will take care of like the random 8 roaches. I can sometimes make their way across the map, but it's not that. Even Acid Plant can be a popular map for roaches. We have Denver, as I said, going for the +1 melee. Not quite on his double upgrades, but neither is uThermal. His engineer bays are only just finishing.
Mm-hmm. Do you like the 4th base timing, though? And again, just to give another nod to that Banshee, it spots it immediately. So uThermal with all information. And he did have that early, fast 3rd command center, so he's producing a lot more SCVs, has mules access, of course, as well. Doesn't want to land on the low ground just until he knows it's about safe, because there are a lot of lings. Now, one thing to note, Denver might be playing a similar style to what Stefano was doing, which is actually staying on lane Baneling for a very long time, and eventually getting up to Spire and adding Corruptors. It's like a map control style we're starting to see out of these European Zergs.
There's always like, it seems to be like, I think Dark was one of the guys who, oh, hold on here, it's going to be a surround perfectly set up. I think uThermal realized at the last second, oh wait, there were other lings. And that was too late. So this is actually really bad because I don't know if he has enough Marines to hold on. Oh,
he's going to try though.
Yeah, this is a little bit risky. That was a lot of lings to see and not have Hellions against.
And they're diving right in here. The decisiveness of Denver is huge. He gets on top of the Marines and the tanks, but actually I think the good spread there from the Marines and that stim made it a huge mistake. It was looking kind of dicey for a second, and you can all disagree with me and be like, no, Jeff, what were you looking at? But good control there by uThermal. I
think you're absolutely right. That was the +1 was done for melee, and if the tanks are on siege and it's a surround on everything, I actually think that's no third on location for uThermal. So that could have been a lot deadlier, and you're right about just going back to like this really heavy ling style, not getting that secondary tech. He is getting the centrifugal hooks, which makes sense, but yeah, that's the only layer tech really he's using so far. And kind of cool to see Burrow this fast. There are really as Plant is figured out, there are main ramps that you can try and burrow Banelings, and I hope that's his plan.
Agreed. Makes a really exciting gameplay, but also just a huge nuisance to the Terran players. They have to scan all the time or avoid those kind of common spots. Now, behind this, uThermal's just kind of teching up as per usual. He does secure that 3rd because that Ling attack was not successful. He's got a slight supply advantage, which is not entirely uncommon for a player doing this style. But one of the things you got to watch for Denver is the whole idea behind this is that you get up to big bases pretty quick. Like, not just 4, but like 5 or 6 bases. You float around 80-ish drones, a little bit higher. And the idea is you bank all this money and you can have a real explosive hive or late layer tech with either double Spire or perhaps Ultras or something along those lines.
He's finally upgrading from his Hydrosin, by the way.
Okay, so there we go.
Eventually he's gonna make Hydras, but I do like, Denver probably could have gotten up to like that almost 80 work count a lot faster. Like we talked about the lings not working, but you know, that was a lot of lings not to work. So it's not like that perfect macro game for him. uThermal should feel a little comfortable, but it is a very hard game to read. I do not think he saw those Burrowed Banelings.
No.
And you're not going to be paying attention to the very slight graphical little blur that you can technically see. I don't think Denver, it's
Did
not worth
he,
using them
though?
here.
You don't pop
use
it on
them
this.
here.
No, don't do that. There's bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, okay.
I will say uThermal's done a great job, though, of fighting back the creep. Because of all the things he lost earlier on, that's one of the first places a Terran can kind of lose control, but he's done a darn good job fighting back that creep, and it's only at mid-map right now. Still no 5th base, by the way, for Denver, and while uThermal's on a solid 3 base, it's not like he's in danger, but it is something to keep your eye on.
Denver's managing to keep up decently with upgrades, just by going for 1 upgrade at a time.
Yeah.
But he will fall behind for that 2-2 push potentially. But I think that's why he's planning on the banelings to get some pretty good hits. Scan to reveal the hive timings. He's the infestation pit, so I mean, it kind of reveals the hive timing. And just going to continue pressuring until he has his upgrades.
And there is the Hydras, which all of a sudden add that anti-air, so if the medevacs wanted to push forward, they would die. They're going to have to retreat. I think that's still the first Banshee. Just kind of going around. Now, this 5th base location's a little bit interesting. It actually kind of expands away from the Terran, which I do like about that. But it's also kind of hard to defend the 9 o'clock-ish spot versus the 12 o'clock. It opened up some avenues for uThermal to attack.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bad ramp. Don't go to that ramp.
uThermal doesn't know that, though. You still don't use them. You still
Not
do
yet?
not use them.
More than that? You want more than that?
Because he's going to scan.
The whole army!
Okay, there you go. That's when he used it. Oh,
he
the scan barely missed
no!
this. Oh, good lord.
That's not that good.
He doesn't want to do it with the tanks, I guess.
Does he fall back into it? Well, now I'm just excited. Now I just want it to happen. It's not going to happen. Anyways, Denver pulls in the pretty interesting engagement. Doesn't get the burrowed banelings. Falls back with just the Hydras. He's got a lot of lings. He's making 13 banelings behind this. I guess he did pop those banelings, but it just didn't do much.
Yeah, well, it was an awkward opportunity to do it, but those, like, speaking of banelings, all of his banelings have been used up. He's actually waiting for 13 of them, and they finally do, but there's still so many tanks to take care of. The medevacs can pick up here, and it's exactly what happens, and uThermal, so much of those baneling bombs, man. His 1 push of the game, his 1 real push of the game might just be enough to win it, and I think Denver even realizes, like, man, that was supposed to be glorious, and instead, I'm losing.
He's going to tap out ungloriously, or ingloriously, excuse me, but some good ideas, some interesting map control there, but he took that 1 massive fight that he didn't quite need to. I know what he was thinking. He was like, if I can get these burrowed banelings to pop on the army, maybe then. And I'll tell you what, a lot of Terrans would in that situation stem and run backwards into the tanks, and had they done that, could have seen 25 Marines go up in flames, but perhaps it's luck, perhaps it's skill, some combination of the two. That's not what uThermal did. He takes the decisive win there in the end.
I'm for once, I'm not going to be like, pregame was just really good, man. Like, I think it's all skill. I'm going to be like,
Is it luck?
A little luck.
A little bit of luck.
So much more often we see the Marines first and only the Marines, but that was like a little bit of the tanks, and I'm pretty sure that's why he didn't pop it. Was that the best pop was on like 6 tanks, and that's just not. That's not what we want to do.
Well, yes, the highest value was the tanks, and it wouldn't have killed him, to your point. But it was kind of funny because there was a time there where I think he could have got 10, 12 Marines. What's funny is he was window shopping like us, right? He's like, no. If the whole army walks over that, it's way more than 10 or 12 Marines. We're talking like 30 or 40, and I win the fight. So he was definitely like, I'm waiting for the higher one. He didn't quite get it.
Yeah.
And I do have to agree with you. There is RNG, and there's a little bit of luck in this game. And if you don't get it, sometimes it can make all the difference. And there's a fun shot, actually. He smiled after the game because he was kind of like, I don't know if you knew what was happening there, but just barely missed it. I think if he pulls back, though, in his defense, he loses that base. He's in a worse position. So I think he did kind of have to fight there. It's just that it was unfortunate that he didn't get the engagement he wanted.
That's certainly true. Yeah, but I just want to mention, like, I saw Denver kind of rising up in the online leagues, and it was because of these cool moves. Like, he had some decent results, but it was the really cool moves that made people pay attention to him. So he's just a really fun player to watch. That shouldn't be the only time we see burrowed banelings, or the only time we see an early pool.
Yeah.
And uThermal, like, it's not the only time we'll see him T-Rex. There's going to be a lot of interesting openers, and what could potentially be an ace match, as this has just been heated so far, so I don't see a reason why not.
Well, just to ride the coattails of your fantastic point, both these players threw the other opponent a little bit of a weird thought to have for the rest of the series, right? Double proxy barracks in the first game, early speed in game 2, so both these players have a lot to consider as they go into this now best of 3. It's all tied up. It was best of 5. I was trying to be fancy, but it's a little bit confusing. We're here. Anyways, lower right-hand side, the blue Terran from Team Liquid. It's uThermal. And don't worry, he's got his stuffed animal with him.
secret power. The top left, as the red Zerg, he is Denver.
Get a little shot of that mouse and keyboard hand. I think that's really interesting. I don't have any analysis to break down, what that necessarily does. I just know that a lot of FPS players do it. Of course, at the end of the day, is whatever you're comfortable with, but it's different. That's not the way I was raised to play mouse and keyboard.
I really seen, I can't think of the benefit for it, other than that it's just the way that you, your parents gave you a mouse and keyboard, and you're like, well, this naturally goes here because you're 12 and
you have quicker access to the number keys, I guess. So there is something to that.
Yeah, okay. I guess.
But let us know if you have a super strong answer. You can tweet at us or something like that. Don't put it in the chat because we're not looking, or do put it in the chat, but we're not looking.
Yeah, do what you want.
This game will. Well, hey, tell me about this map here.
So actually,
we talked a lot about that yesterday, actually, didn't we?
We did, exactly. I was going to bring, for me, I haven't played too many for myself, and then it's the new map pool is often not chosen, especially for the first few weeks.
Yeah.
So all these online stuff that I do, it just, it's acid plant, lost and found dream catcher every single time. So I come in here and I'm like, what is this map like? But we've seen it picked often enough, and initially the stats kind of preferred Zerg, I believe.
Yeah.
We've really seen Terrans take hold of it, maybe prefer it, that might be too strong of a word, but then they found the ways to abuse it. They know where to put supply depots and wall off. They know where to put their tanks. uThermal is a player who can play mech. Bring it up because Hero Marine had a really fantastic mech game on this map, but I don't think he's going to abuse it like that.
Yeah, I think the map just plays very congested. There's a lot of kind of tight choke points, and there's a lot of ramps. So if you're a Terran player that can get to a critical spot and siege up, it can be very difficult to dislodge an army from there, and you can then be attacking the third, the fourth, or really all the bases, all the way up to the natural. So I think it's one of those maps that really rewards strong positional play. And I like this for both players, actually. I thought Denver has shown signs of having very cerebral kind of awareness of what needs to happen in order to get into a position of power, but also uThermal, of course, we've just seen him throughout Challenger, throughout WCS, always be in the right spot, or at least try to fight for that spot.
Apparently this was Denver's map choice.
Okay.
But what I find funny is that for everything else, Cerulean is also Denver's map choice, but uThermal threw that for a loop, and then Acid was uThermal's map choice, and Denver threw that one for a loop. But finally get to see what their plan, Denver's ultimate plan was for this map. You might just like it macro-wise. Of course, I don't want to say there's some grand chess strategy that can be done here, but you might have an idea. I mean, I brought up Burrowed Banelings. I think we could see it again. I see some pathways here that could definitely be abusive. Maybe he does finally get the 30 Marine pop.
What's funny about that is normally I wouldn't think of a map being good for Burrowed Banelings per se. Of course, some are better than others. If it's really wide open, that's a really hard one to do. But this map is just so darn tight, and there's so many ramps that, to your point, that actually could be a big consideration. Is hey, I like to burrow my Banelings, and there's so many good spots in this map, I'm probably going to get one big explosion off at least.
That's a fairly early Baneling nest. I mean, still droning.
Oh, yeah. Maybe worried about Hellbats, because that is the timing attack that the Terrans will bust out in these best of fives. Did he see that command center?
He did, yes.
All right.
There are still Hellbat attacks that happen after the third command center, but obviously they're a little bit later, a little less potent. But I think he's just playing a little bit defensively. Good Reaper Scout, getting all around the main base again.
The triple queens, no more for you. Did see the Bailey nest though, which again I still think I read that as defensive. I don't read that as an offensive Bailey nest.
Yeah, I mean, he's still making drones. Now he's getting a lair, very clearly. So the idea of an early attack, and they didn't have to be Hellbats, so there are other ways Banelings would have helped.
We don't see Baneling busts like that nearly as much these days. And I think a big part of it is because Terrans have incorporated more Banshees into their builds, but also they just react better to it.
Yes.
It used to be a bad wall in or defending your natural when you shouldn't because it's a huge Baneling bust coming in or something like that. The Terrans, they just kind of have the repetitions and part of their build just absorbs that kind of aggression, I think.
Yeah, I agree. They just got better about it. And there were some remember Heart of the Swarm, there was Ling Baneling 1/1 timings or even upgrade lists. Those were really, you felt really dumb losing to those, but they did happen. But no, we're just moving on from that. uThermal takes out a decent chunk of Overlords. Now blinded Denver on the map, but he knows it's third CC. The push wouldn't be coming to the middle anytime soon, as he's also presuming it's bio, not suddenly 17 Hellions.
Yep.
His worry is primarily drops and I guess a little bit of Banshee harassment, which that he has covered with Overlords.
Do like the fourth base timing, and again, kind of expanding down the left side of the map. I think it was Stefano, we commentated on this map, and we saw him take more of the middle bases. I think they achieve fairly similar things just because of the pathing. I have a little bit of a pause here from Denver as he's going to figure that out. But what do you think about expanding down the left side? Is there a big advantage to be had there, or is that just kind of a flavor thing?
It's really a theoretical question at this point, but
Sure.
I say that, and yet Acid Plant also is still a map that some people take left, some people take right as thirds. So it could just be a personal thing for the entirety of its lifespan, or it could actually be like, okay, that is 100% better because it gives you high ground, for instance.
Sure.
Sure, I suppose, but also might be.
We are in the game, by the way.
Yes, the game is back in.
As handsome as Denver is, and by the way, that jaw is chiseled. I just am more interested in how he plays StarCraft right now.
I know. I'm
There's the
thinking
burrow.
about this because I think the obvious drawback to that fourth base is that there's not creep spread yet.
Right.
But it's soon enough. Cause
Maybe it's the harder base to take the longer the game goes as well. So if you
That's another
save the
thing,
top
yeah.
bases, and this ends up being a 45-minute game, those are very easy to grab at that stage.
It might be the least abusive one by tanks. I'm looking at the middle one.
Oh
like,
yeah,
going behind.
that's a thing too.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. It is going to be bio for uThermal, by the way.
Right, and we do have Burrow again. So
I'm excited.
That is exciting. We got so excited and we got really confused, and then we realized what happened. But I'm hoping to be really excited and then really, really happy.
Have the
when
payoff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we need
get that
explosions.
payoff. Yeah.
That's what everybody wants. I just like the burrow is one of the biggest upgrades that kind of gets underappreciated, underused for the longest time. Like just burrowing a Zergling at a base, having him spot around the map, a weird attack happens, you can burrow to win a queen. All those kind of things actually go a real long way. I mean, I get why people haven't done it that much, but it's really fun to see Denver here every game. Just like, nope, I get burrow. That's what I do.
Yeah. Double tank production for uThermal.
Early too, fairly early.
Yeah, I'd say so. He went for a pretty well-timed fourth base last game too. It just his push just did so well. It's like, did he even? Yeah, he did. He was planning for the long game.
Lots of intel, and it is going to be Hydra upgrades behind this. So it is Hydra Ling Baneling. I got all excited about the potential for it just to be pure Ling Baneling last game, but it was not to be. He didn't make that many Hydras, but he also wasn't really allowed to. So we'll see if he goes pretty crazy with that here. As this force moves out, but it's going to move out into a world of well-upgraded Zerglings and backed up by some Hydras and Banelings. The creep is becoming a bit of an issue. As Zombiegar pointed out, the left side wasn't the most creeped, but as it does get there, could be a problem because uThermal hasn't really been able to commit anything to stopping this from happening.
I really feel like uThermal is just planning on having such a strong push because not much has happened in this game. And even last game, when a lot of things did happen, he still had a very strong push.
Yeah.
That the creep spread will be fast enough. It spreads faster, it also recedes faster. 2 scans ideally is what it's going to take to actually push up against the fourth base, and that might just be true. I think it actually might take 3 if Denver's really on point, but he's going to try and control it a little. But generally you want to try and control the creep spread that you do eventually plan attacking into. But sometimes that top side creep spread gone doesn't matter as much as say this creep spread.
Right. Of course, as I say it, and as you're pointing out, uThermal all of a sudden does an amazing job fighting back a lot of this creep at no cost so far. There's just now 1 Hydra going to chase off this medevac, but it doesn't end up catching it. In the top right-hand side, these Marines have been fairly unscathed as well. And he's buying a lot of time, is uThermal, because as Zombie Grub said, and I think this is something we can pretty much count on, it's a lot of tanks, and it's going to be a big mid-game push, probably a maxed out tank Marine medevac type of a thing. And on this map with all these congested spots, if you don't take the right fight, it's a very easy win for uThermal.
What's funny is I'm watching the ramps and where uThermal might be pushing into, and the the weird thing is the more you creep spread, the less likely Baneling bombs will work.
Right. Yeah, they have to scan.
Yeah, so it's almost like if you really wanted the Baneling bombs to work this game, you'd have to stop, which obviously you don't really want to do. But he hasn't really set up the major Baneling bomb in this game like last. I think last he was defending a lot on it. This one should be more about the surrounds and different angles.
And that scan in front of the base kind of tells me uThermal's aware, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, these are scans for Baneling bombs.
It was kind of hard to see. Yeah, but it was hard to see. So kind of kudos to uThermal to even notice that they happened.
I agree. And there are no real Baneling bombs, by the way, that he's seeing, but that's kind of the cost of just even upgrading that, which I think is awesome anyways. We have a big attack, but I mean, if you were to come down from that upper spot right there through that ramp, you're dead. You can't do it. Now here's a big counterattack though, jumping on top of uThermal, who was not maxed out, but has no real forces back here, so that third base is going to get ransacked, and the Natural's in trouble as well.
That was a perfect timing.
Oh.
30 more seconds, uThermal probably has enough clogging up the
Holy cow.
the lowered supply depot to actually be fine, but now he's forced to split his attention, and of course now just down in workers significantly.
How many banelings is that? Oh, he's on top of the production as well. It looks like this will get cleaned up, but 42 SMEs have died, just down to 24. You cannot fight in this spot, by the way, Denver. No way. I'm gonna be that commentator. I'm gonna call it out right now. If you attack into this, you will get slammed. He doesn't need to. He's got time. He's maxed out. Bank it up. He's gonna do it though.
Banelings? I think he's gonna try. He's still on
gonna do
big
it.
spread.
You know what? I call it back. You can do it. Go for the attack. There he comes. He slams the army. uThermal taps out. I told you he could attack there. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, uThermal had to stretch forward. He tried to pick off those mining banelings, but in doing so, his force expanded outward, and the tanks were unprotected. The baneling's not a big threat, but the Ling's able to get on top of it, and that was it. I mean, because he took so much damage as Natural in third, all he had to do was basically trade out that fight, let alone what he did do, which was slaughter that army.
It was a perfect scenario for Denver, who not only was probably planning on taking a similar engagement in general, he did it while ensuring it being like kind of an all-in, not really, but sort of. And he was thinking uThermal would be desperate and his attention would be split. So it was the perfect opportunity to do that Zerg thing and just come in from all surrounds. And he still had some creature to work with too, which was really, really nice for him. But with that being game 3, with Denver now in lead 2-1, we are going to go into a break. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back with game number 4. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I told you it wouldn't take long. It's game number 4 for this series, and it's not who you would think is in the lead. Denver is up 2-1.
It's been a fun series. It's been well played, but he is in the driver's seat. If he wins any one of these next potentially 2 games, it'll be Denver that advances to the round of 8 and shuts down uThermal. Now, I do want to remind people, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been wrong about 1,000 times so far. Isn't uThermal just like ranked number 9, 10, or somewhere in that ballpark? in the WCS standings. He needs to win.
He's a little less than that, I believe. Actually, oh no, you're right, because he's in
I was right.
Oh,
It happens.
oh,
A miracle did happen. Anyways, he's got to win.
Oh wait, no, he's bumped back to 11. Okay, well.
Wait, he needs to win. Bottom right-hand side from the Netherlands, it's Team Liquid's uThermal. And the points are being adjusted live, but the point that we're trying to make is if he loses this, he's not going to BlizzCon. That's just not going to happen.
That is the point. In the top left, as the red Zerg up 2-1 for France, he is Denver.
And what a spoiler that would be, too. Denver has to win this tournament to go to BlizzCon, which is about as unlikely as it sounds. He's having a fantastic tournament, but that would mean he beats Cyril amongst 2 or 3 other just amazing players. It's just very unlikely. But if he can have the tournament of his life and chalk up a huge result by eliminating uThermal from BlizzCon and going to that round of 8, it'd be a pretty amazing story for this young man from France.
It would be a really amazing story. We got some good like underdog representation. By that I mean the French tournament. So that's pretty good. And if Denver wins, that'd be fantastic. uThermal, typically, TvZ is almost, it's not quite in the bag for him.
Yes.
But, even he's like, I think I could be one of the people to take down Cyril.
Yep.
For instance, he just gets so much practice in TvZ that you would think he would win against Denver. Maybe a Hero Marine who's been in trouble in the past would be the trouble. No, it's this guy. And we're on Fracture, which is a very small map. We already saw so many interesting openers between these two, the Tyrax and the Roach Warren, counter on another small map, Cerulean Falls, that, uThermal didn't open up the Tyrax here, but Denver did open up with the pool first, and now he's got to use those lings for something, so he's going to send them across the map.
Zombie Grub, you were right. There's going to be some SCV scouting that occurs in this series from here on out. There it is, and it does spot the Zerglings are trying to sneak by. Now, again, what they would try to achieve would be to slow down the construction of that low ground command center and really throw uThermal for a loop. But this Reaper will come out. It'll pull back and say, if the Zerglings want to show up, I'll be ready. Very likely they, well, actually, no. I was just going to say they won't, but here they come. They're trying to slide in there.
Yeah, they really should just stay here. Yeah, okay.
Like maybe went across the map now? Nope. And they're slow, so they are dead. They're going to split off and try to do something here, but it's very unlikely anything is achieved.
Yeah, he's going to get some scouting.
Well,
he
maybe.
could have scared uThermal if uThermal wanted to do the SCV scout, so... Oop, almost got the SCV. That is 4 dead lings, but so be it. We're now on our way to... So we got some scouting. We got some reacted Marines, and while that, temporarily could just be because the lings were there and he wanted something else to ensure his protection, it could also, he could not swap the factory over. We've certainly seen him do that before, but Denver with another fast Roachborn. This is not in response to Tyrax, but that's fast.
Queen's out in the front, but this is also a map where you can hop, if I'm not mistaken, you can hop up a lot of spots up into the main. It's very hard to stop the Reaper from scouting. Yeah, that whole ridge along there is very much so jumpable, if you will. But the nice thing about that Roach Warren placement is you pop up in the main, you don't see anything too weird. Maybe you don't see the spawning pool quivering, and that's a big read for you. If you did even see the spawning pool. There's additional gases going down as well, so this is, in my opinion, definitely going to be some kind of attack here.
It's tough because speed would be done by now, and he didn't see lings again.
There's no lings at all.
Yeah, that is really tough. But the almost good news is So he didn't go directly into Hellions. He did bother getting a Cyclone for a drop, perhaps. Yeah, he's going to go for the Marines. If he can scout this at all, and it's actually not going to be aggressive, so it is just it's lair. It's almost what we see in a ZVZ, but not really. But it's usually it's a faster Roach Warren than usual in this matchup. So it'll be able to help defend, and that's what we can say about that. So uThermal is free to go into his Hellions, and Overlord will actually check what's going else on in uThermal's base, but it did miss this medevac.
Sees the remainder of the tech, though. Won't be here in time to see Liberator popping out. And this drop I'm normally a pretty darn big fan of, and of course I'm just a big fan of drops in general because they at least get scouting information done, like you were saying. It's not going to achieve much. The Roaches are out here. There's already 4 Queens to greet the attack, and it will be pushed back. Maybe it'll satisfy for getting a little bit of blood damage on that third. But the nice thing about these Roaches is the Hellions reinforcing this attack. They're not scary. I mean, if they get in, sure, but they shouldn't.
Well, they shouldn't. Right. Maybe they're a little distracted, though. Couple Queens, couple Roaches, a pretty instant pull to the safety of their mamas, but not enough DPS, so 8 drones still gonna go down, potentially more, 3 more drones.
Wow.
2 more drones, very close. And some scouting in the main.
And
whoa.
The third.
Well, that's pretty big.
Yes, this attack all of a sudden became a fantastic attack. as the 13 drones by themselves would have been great. The hatch dying by itself would have been great, but the two of them combined, wow. And all of a sudden, I take almost everything I just said and I flip it on its head like roaches. Very good if you have an economic lead, but on a short map like this, and you're down a base all of a sudden, I mean, not down a base to your opponent, but you lost a base. Unless he gets some damage done here, which I don't see happening, he's in a lot of trouble. Yeah, how do you get past that right there?
What is he gonna do here? So he gets an Overlord, a drop Overlord. So he doesn't have enough gas to go for Ravagers.
Oh, for Queens, I guess?
So you can bring the Queens over and just use whatever gas you can get for more Roaches, and you can even Link Flood, and that, you know, sometimes can be, okay, so he's turning this into a Roach Queen attack, and I don't believe that was intention. It is gonna hit somewhat with that Roach speed, so it's making the best out of a very bad start. Down to 26 workers is definitely all in. But uThermal he figured something like this was going to happen. He, with that tank, should be okay.
Yep, and this Liberator is going to take some damage, but even just spotting the Queen's mid-map tells uThermal how committed this attack is. There is no third behind this. There are no drones. It's just more Roaches and waiting for that speed. And now with 2 tanks and a third on the way, uThermal's got this time to really, really set up. And there's just no economy to make that many Ravagers anyways. The gas mining is insignificant. The Queens will show up over here, but the Queens by themselves, unless they aggro the entire army of uThermal, aren't going to achieve that much over here.
I'm actually really confused.
Okay, there's a creep tumor in your base.
That's really cool. And he's going to just Queen her ass. I think... No, he's still planning on doing the attack. He's not trying to give up and macro. Well, that didn't really work out. Oh, that's no way to the Liberators. Yeah, but there's a creep tumor in the base. That's kind of cool, right? And now they don't spot high ground, so the tanks are invincible up there. Okay, now there's an Overlord, does see that. But there's 3 tanks, there's Marines, there's a Liberator. It's still just more Roaches behind this. I think we're going to game 5, as uThermal's going to take perhaps the cheapest win here, as long as he holds the fort. I mean, I just can't see it going any other way. Yeah, especially with the lack of Ravagers. Even with 18 Ravagers, I don't think it's enough, because the Stim Marine count is high enough. Yeah, I didn't start combos that fast, but he's going to have 1-1. So that's still pretty good.
Supply blocked, and that's going to be it. Well, it wasn't the flashiest ending. It wasn't the most conclusive, but it's a result. As uThermal just kind of stands off. They look at each other, and he's like, well, you got enough. Good game. All right, I'm not even going to try it. We're going to go to game 5 here between these two.
I really wonder what they do with the creep tumors. I think that's just something cool he does occasionally. And he's like, well, I have the opportunities. So why not?
It's just cool. There's no synergy with his attack whatsoever. If there was like, well, I was going to say Nidus, but that doesn't need that. So there's nothing. There's really nothing.
It's just to a Brood Nidus. Suddenly it doesn't. Yeah, that was... So that was just a really awkward ending. Of course, it was understandable. Denver knew he wasn't going to break that, so he just tapped out. We just didn't get to see the finale, the grand finale of all the Roaches exploding. But he let those... He let it kind of slip through his fingers. Let is too strong of a word, yes, because he didn't have those speedlings to help control either the Hellions or the medevac drop. He was depending on still kind of slow Queens, even on creep, and still kind of slow Roaches, even on creep. So they just didn't kill anything fast enough.
Yeah.
And you underestimated both sides of the attack. You simply didn't have enough for both sides.
One of those just kind of weird technical plays that are also empowered, by the way, on Fractured. Like, I feel like if it's a larger map, everything gets there just a little bit slower and there's just more stuff to receive it. But I do have to agree, and I think the pinnacle moment with what you just said was at the third base, because it's not like he didn't send anything over there to stop it. It's just that he sent, I think it was like 3 Roaches. And actually, the medevac healing the Marines, and if you're not target firing, and even if you are target firing the Cyclone, they'll chew right through that. And then that little moment of time where he was splitting his drones, which was nice against the Hellions, it meant that the Cyclone had enough time to actually tear down that third base. So a little bit of an unraveling from Denver, but we'll allow him it. He played really brilliantly in the game before that. We had some smart decisions earlier as well.
That wasn't the first time that medevac drop into the Hellion harassment really snowballed. That was exactly what uThermal did against Scarlet yesterday. So, like...
And I was doubting it. I won't lie. I'll throw myself under this bus. I was like, no way, there's Roaches? We already saw 4 Queens push back the initial attack of that medevac? And they're like, we'll take plan B, and plan B was just to win the game, I guess.
Sometimes that's a good plan.
Yeah.
All right, it is the ace match of this TvZ. Quite an interesting one. Not a lot of long games. There's certainly some interesting ones. On the top right, as the blue Terran for Team Liquid, he is uThermal.
And the man that wants to give us another big upset here in the round of 16 from France. In the lower left-hand side, it's the Red Zerg, Denver. He's gonna have to play better than he did in game 4. Interesting ideas, execution not quite there, and it gave uThermal an easy win. And that's tough. He had the momentum. They talked about it at the analyst desk. uThermal's one of those players that can tilt. He can get kind of unraveled. He can get kind of weirded out. But if he was feeling that way, that last game had to give him a pretty big boost of confidence.
Yeah, he might have an oddly like high win rate with that. His execution of it certainly is good, and his micro is usually the highlight of it.
Yeah.
It's just that in both of those games I was talking about, it was actually the Hellions that really did a lot. And I think both games also, the Zerg player was going for roaches. So they also had that kind of lack of a lot of fast units that maybe they don't kill the Hellions.
Yeah.
They bother them. You'd be surprised if like 4 Lings are on top of the Hellion, suddenly they don't get that right shot. So just kind of a coincidence there, but it seems to be a very effective coincidence. So I think everyone is seeing this.
Yeah, looks like we might, unfortunately.
Oh my
Of course it's a meal, yeah. Every time. Home Story Cup memes abound. We'll have a little bit of a pause, we kind of sort that out. But to your point, it's actually kind of specifically roaches, which is funny because on paper, when you're facing Hellions, you'd think roaches are the superior answer, but it's actually Lings that can move block and get into a position that denies them access to the mineral line a little bit faster. Yes, they die, but you'll gladly give up 13 Lings to stop 13 drones from dying to give time to the Queens to get over there, or for the drones to evacuate.
It's also like, if it is the Cyclone, we see Lings again kind of early here, but 6 of them this time, that was 4. But if it is just the like Cyclone Marines are gonna be in trouble, they also get those nice little pockets in the mineral lines, and Lings like sometimes really don't feel that useful. But
yeah.
I don't overanalyze it too much because I don't think we're gonna see the same exact build from uThermal. There's so many builds he can do, and while it is a good one, it's much more likely that Denver will have a different set of units, both composition as well as just number of. So it's sort of risky to try and like pin your hopes and dreams on killing 13 workers on a hatchery.
Right.
Yeah, SCV Scout. Like uThermal is going to close this series out. He's not going to let some silly one-base Ravager push kill him. So Denver realizes that, just keeps Lings at home.
Good call by you. The second that strategy was pulled out, you kind of said, well, for the rest of the series, we will see SCV Scouts, and you were right. Both players well informed, though. I will say the Overlord's kind of scouring over by the natural, and they see everything they need to see for right now. But still with this SCV over at the third base spot. Now, unfortunately for him, Denver will take the other one. And speed is nowhere near finishing, of course, but the Zergling should give pursuit. And of course, as I say that, it actually peels right off. It's my mini caster curse. But unless he scouts the third, he won't know about it for a little while. Not the biggest of deals, although, to again go to one of your points, Denver is one of those players that will bust out something pretty cheeky. In game 5, little Ling Ravager off a 2-base, it is possible, so you have to be aware of it.
Certainly, yeah.
And there's that scout.
I feel like maybe that the 1-base, even 2-base Roach Ravager's died off a little bit. There's so many other cheekier things. David hates that, but yeah, cheekier things you can do. And Denver, we still have yet to see the really true amazing Baneling bombs, so come on, Blue Shift. You gotta be the game.
Is it game 5 where it happens?
That'd be pretty high.
To win the game in the series, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. All the maps, I feel like more often than not, I'm talking about how short the map is, because you had Cerulean, Fraction, now Blue Shift is also kind of short. Ooh, this is always funny when like only a very small amount of Hellions get in, but you don't have any Lings, so you're like, who sends 2 Hellions in?
And it does this. Got 5 drones already.
7.
Now to 7. Oof. Not bad. I guess the slight good news about being early, and believe me, I know, I'm only saying slight, is it gives you enough time to rebuild. You're not making anything else right now. It is just drones, queens, and Lings. You're not at like that tech switch where you were hoping to do a timing attack or something. But there is that fairly early Bailey nest again. Seems to be something he doesn't want to die to Hellbats. He never will.
Yes, that seems to be his plan. I mean, he did have a very strong macro game on Parasite, his map choice, and this is also his map choice. But I feel like Parasite was a perfect map for that big surround that Zergs love, and that's why maybe they're okay in these new maps. Blue Shift, I don't see any huge surround opportunities. There's 3 main attack paths, middle and then the sides, but they're not really so much surrounds. They are like, they're kind of like chokes.
Yeah.
Not too much here. Maybe a little bit of scouting in the main.
Yep, just the 1 drone so far. In the main, though, it looks like there is no queen here. And this opens up perhaps the opportunity for these Hellions. They're going to poke and prod, very cagey play by them. Doesn't want to give them up just yet. Ooh, a little bit too early on the drones to go back, and that's where some damage is going to happen. It's up to 5 drones now.
uThermal, pretty much known for his micro multitasking, is really doing a lot with a little. The Hellions in the beginning, now the Liberator. It's definitely forcing Denver not to focus on the correct things either. And behind this, uThermal is macroing really quite well, being pretty safe with his tank timings too, in case there were roaches. Again, you know, that he didn't see. That was his fault in the first game of this series, but he would be really safe if that were the case this time.
Gonna skip the Banshee this time as far as I could tell. But he's gotten such good information off of all this attacking that he's been doing that he knows he's not really in danger of some kind of crazy low econ aggression attack right now. With the lifted orbital, he sees that. You got to kill that Overlord, by the way, because it sees absolutely everything otherwise.
I feel like sometimes Zergs just like don't bother even sending a second Overlord, it feels nowadays. Yeah. They only send the one and they only suicide the one, but they also maybe pull the second one back fast enough. And Denver is just, not that he's let them die, but he prefers them to die as long as he gets the most amount of scouting.
Yep, we'll leave it there for the longest period of time of being well informed. This map, by the way, also fairly small, you'll notice, and it's especially important to knock down these rocks because the middle area has some unusually tall grass and kind of close together, so it's actually a lot of blind spots down the middle of the map. But if you open up those rocks, you then have the multi-angles that we've been seeing from the Hydra Ling Baneling composition. Because if you attack from one angle into a tank line and Marines with that, you're going to have a bad time. So it's nice to see Denver not allowing for that kind of a cheap loss, at least for right now.
That's definitely right. Like, once taking on the rocks, the three main pathways suddenly become, yeah, there's still three of them, but there's also a big old surround in the middle, or different avenues from the backside. Like, Denver might just go ahead and try and kill all of the rocks eventually, but it's 7 minutes, 3 bases. Like, there might be a double drop on the way soon, so you really want to make sure he doesn't get surprised by that.
Wow.
It's not the double drop, it is just the push. Once again, they were able to fix something, I suppose.
I'm going to pause here.
Oh, it was a misclick. How
Interesting.
Pause break does work. I feel like a lot of people don't know that, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
And he does have a weird positioning of his arm.
He's got that weird arm thing going on.
Yeah, all right then.
Now, an Armory is finishing up behind this, so I think we're going to have some Hellbats with this. He knows that he's facing a lot of Lings and Banelings. And this attack is very aggressive. It's quite quick. Army supply hugely in favor of uThermal. Good thing those rocks are down, otherwise this would be really, really bad. But it's a pretty good surround. There is Baneling speed. They're going to clamp down on top of this. The tank's just now sieging. The Marine count has plummeted. The tanks are still there, though. There's 2 of them.
I'm kind of surprised he didn't wait for his other Banelings. This actually, okay, he's going to pick up the Marines. Let the Hellbats soak a lot of the Banelings, and this will eventually be cleaned up. I am still kind of shocked that Denver didn't wait for those, because he had us around. I think what he was worried about or hoping, you know, whatever, like, was that he could jump on it and that he wouldn't let the reinforcements be able to help out. But with 2 tanks still alive and those reinforcements now being rallied across the map, no counterattack set up from Denver. The lack of Banelings could actually really hurt. The lack of Lings that hurt him.
There we go. He's going to jump on top of it again, going right for that tanks. He's going to grab on top of this. And the Bioforce is absolutely annihilated as it picks up. Actually, instead of absolutely annihilated, I will say it gets mostly picked up in exchange for the tanks. I'm mostly just not keen on, I don't know. I hear you perhaps disagreeing with me, but uThermal, that attack timing, I guess if the rocks aren't down and you catch them on a huge swell of drones, you just win the game. So that's kind of nice. And he did get most of the force out of there and keeps the medevac. So it's not like it's all doom and gloom, but I thought that was pretty good for Denver.
No, it was this weird thing where I was initially going to be like, well, is this really an okay move for uThermal? It was right before combat shields. You're setting yourself part of that surround. But it was probably thinking about the timing. But then it seemed like Denver didn't have a lot.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he did have enough Banelings, and he's actually perfectly fine. And it did kind of turn on uThermal in a way. uThermal's still up in that supply. He's made Denver just basically uncomfortable and slightly behind from earlier attacks. So that didn't look the prettiest, as uThermal was entirely cleaned up. Denver was not, like, that was not a perfect cleanup. That was not a comeback cleanup. Like, he's living. There you go.
And there you said it. You called this out as well. The additional rocks will get worked on as the game progresses. And now uThermal's going to try to battle back this creep, because again, on the smaller size map like this, if you let it go out of the way, it's going to be right outside your bases. And that'll be a huge problem. There was a force top left. It's going to actually head back up into the main base. It was quite wounded, so it's going to try to heal up. But we're entering into that Hydra stage, so the upgrades are starting to kick in here. uThermal not scoring big victories off this. He is making 2 tanks at a time. But I'm beginning to, I'll tell you what, I just have like a feeling. I'm getting a little bit nervous for uThermal.
Really?
Yeah, I kind of am.
I think it's actually a really even game. I mean, Denver,
I agree.
I think that was enough to recover from whatever like earlier drone losses were a little silly. And uThermal did overstep, but it's it's almost pretty even. Like he's got 2 tank production, he's got 2 upgrades against what is just going to be.
I have nothing of value. It's purely
faster.
an instinct here. I'm just a fan of this game, and I'm like, well, I'm sensing a Denver collision.
Yeah.
And here comes that force.
It's certainly going to come down to, can he get one of those big surrounds again? If he presets them up, there are ways to get those surrounds. It feels like it's a little bit harder than Parasite. And uThermal is choosing the bottom attack path.
He's got his army load up in the medevacs still.
Or is that third?
Hello. Okay.
There we go.
Jeez.
He's missing a pretty key creep tumor to the top, too. Oh, that's a big run by. That's not even a wall. You can't even lift the depots with that one.
And meanwhile, the force is going to get Bailey busted. Holy Toledo, a huge chunk of the bio just goes up in flames. The counterattack not great, but it can all of a sudden become a flank attack as a 360 surround is going to come in on top of this. Is there enough tanks? But actually, Denver's going to disengage. He pulls back. It didn't cost him as much as I was thinking it could have, but he's down 30 supply, and I thought he could have committed to that.
Yeah, that was one of those really hard ones to call where it's like, well, if you retreat, you might just lose all of your Banelings. But he did end up saving quite a few. And that might have been ultimately better than wasting them on all the tanks themselves. He's going to try to set up another surround, but uThermal looks like he's still feeling okay. Even after losing the initial Marines on the front, the run by just simply did not work out. That is not a planetary quite yet, so there's going to be a lot of SCV losses, but Denver is going to lose an entire hatchery and still have a very powerful army on his doorstep.
And that's the bigger scary thing. He's actually relocating to a new base that he was making behind that. So the hatchery is a temporary loss, but it will be replaced. I'm more worried about how he engages. He's thinking about coming in over here, but these tanks are so spread out. The creep has receded. I think he needs to give up on this, in my opinion. I feel like he has to wait until he pushes further onto creep and fight there. But maybe he just doesn't think he has enough time to do that and has to go earlier.
I think he's figuring he's running out of creep. One more scan, and suddenly the tanks are up against his natural, and then that's actually their production line being camped as well. So, but it's the best scenario is that he counters and he pulls back. I don't think he takes a very good fight here.
No.
That's
and this
so
counterattack, it looks like it's going to pull back with off creep. There's 3 tanks there and a bunch of bio. Denver is having no luck on the counterattack. If he fights around this bend, hey, look, I know I was really wrong last game, but I feel like this time I might be less wrong. We'll have to see here, but Denver's going to spot it out with this Overlord and say, can I do this? 2-2, he's going to have to try. Here it comes. Banelings colliding with the front lines. The Hydras are doing what they can. He is getting to the meaty center of this, and the medevacs are going to disengage, and he once more pushes this back as the army supply does close in, and that's a nice, small victory. Gets a lot of those tanks killed, but none of the medevacs, and there's now a 4-base Terran behind this, which equals the bases of Denver.
That was a really expensive fight, too. There was so many Banelings that were lost with uThermal's target firing and just some of them being used on the tanks. And that wasn't all of uThermal's army. He was actually trying to collapse in and reinforce, and if he had, I don't think Denver wins that at all. But on the flip side, uThermal has an army to survive. There's no immediate counterattack for momentum. There's a drop now going down to kill some of Denver's economy off, as it was still okay with that 4th base and 66 drones.
Tries a little bit of a counterattack over there, but uThermal's on top of that as well. And all of a sudden, those bad feelings I had for uThermal are kind of going away. Every time we look at a screen, he's chasing back some Zerg forces that really can't afford to be chased back. He has locked down his 4 bases. He knows that Denver wants to get some Lings and Banelings on top of those bases, so he's leaving tanks and bio behind. And if you can't counterattack and you can't beat the army in the middle of the map, and like you said, a really important point, by the way, the expensive engagement means there's no real hive tech here, right? They're still at layer tech and trying to close it out from there. It's going to get harder.
There's nothing to look forward to in the future for Denver, which is quite a sad statement to make, but it's true. Like, the future is better for uThermal. He's getting better upgrades. He already has +3 attack exposed with +3 armor on the way. The hope is the Baneling bombs. I said it. I asked Blue Ship to give it to us, and he's about to get it.
No! Someone wake Denver up. That's it. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but that was your only opportunity as far as I'm concerned. And now he's going to go around over here. You don't have to fight here. There's no base. You're off creep. You can't do it. You cannot do it.
Like the stars aligned, and oh man. Oh, that was the one hope.
Yeah.
Big counter once again. Maybe going to try and get on top of the production. But then, can he even take on the army if he does that? It's not really working.
Nice attack, though. He's going to get on top of both these bases. And again, uThermal's pathing, he's not fighting anything important. He went to a spot where there should have been a base, but there simply isn't. This game's about to get weird. If you can connect with some Banelings against the Bioforce over at that natural and win on this trade out, that can be pretty good. A nice concave of the Hydra.
Oh!
And there is a Baneling trap. It gets a huge hit. All of a sudden, up in supply is Denver. He's up in workers. There's only 32 SCVs left. Is he doing this?
He might just be doing it. That was really sick. I didn't even see them burrow. That was really...
That Baneling bomb might have done. He's going to clamp. Oh, my goodness. He's circling around outside. Again, this is a nothing spot, though. There's nothing at risk. Make more stuff. Mass up. Wait.
I feel like uThermal, I still go with if he's safe, the future is brighter for him. His upgrades are now all done, and he has a 5th base, and that natural is under attack. He didn't lose the orbital.
He's coming back home.
I feel like uThermal should just go back
he's
home.
Gone. Yeah, well, he was thinking about it for a second. There's this huge force in the middle of the map, but also kind of amassing on the left side of the screen here. And if he loses this army middle of the map, I think he's going to lose the army middle of the map. It is getting clamped down on top of. That's all the tanks. They're dead. The medevacs need to get out of here. Something's got to be salvaged. A couple of the medevacs getting low in health. They die as well. They're going to join up with the middle of the map. Army supply, once again, hugely in favor of uThermal. These exchanges, they're so expensive. It takes so many Banelings to try to waste this army.
Those 2 Banelings would have gotten rid of this entire push.
Yeah.
Oh, Denver, if he had gotten all the Baneling bombs in this game, I think he's already back in it, if not maybe winning it. But just head-to-head, I'm not sure he has a shot.
He comes in from behind. It's got to be now or never, but it's not good enough. The kiting from our Terran player uThermal is so good. He's going to go backwards and not take the damage needed for Denver to get there. He's down 3 supply. There's the smile. Hands off the keyboard. He knows that uThermal has taken this match and this series and will be seen in the round of 8. He's got dreams of going to BlizzCon. Denver tried to get in the way, but couldn't do it. And he's going to say GG as uThermal takes this one 3-2.
Well done, uThermal. Denver, he had a lot of heart in that series. That was so fun. I mean, I'm thinking uThermal was sweating a little bit here and there, and he certainly made his mark for this year's WCS, and certainly we're looking forward to seeing him in 2019. But that'll be it for him. uThermal's BlizzCon dreams are still alive, which is probably the most important thing to take away from this series.
He's gonna get some extra points up there. We'll have to see how it shakes out, but an absolutely stunner of a match. Great job to that young man, and uThermal once again proves he's one of the best in the business as he's joined on stage by Smix.
Thank you very much, guys. Congratulations, uThermal. You have back-to-back round of 8s in the WCS, but more importantly, for Team Shibu, the BlizzCon dream is still alive.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say right now. Things really weren't going my way this series. I wasn't getting in my mood. Then after game 3, I did some push-ups, put my music a bit louder, got into my jam, and whew.
Exactly as you said, a lot of people came into this match thinking it'd be maybe one-sided. He was considered the underdog, but just as you said, it was such a nail-biting series. So what do you think made it so difficult for you?
Well, I think in particular game 1 was very bad for me because I think I was supposed to win that game. It was a pretty decent map for me. I had a good start, but somehow it, like since I lost that, it kind of threw me off. And then on game 3, it was a good Zerg map. He played it really well, I have to say. He completely owned me on that one. And then I decided game 4 and 5, I'm going to try some different strategies, play a bit more conservative maybe, and it worked out.
Well, moving forward, it only gets harder from here because you have two potentially very tough opponents. You have Neeb, who clearly just recently had the top 4 finish in GSL, and Raynor, despite his young age, is impressing everyone with how good he's been lately, and it's also that TvZ matchup you dislike, so which poison do you choose here?
Honestly, they're both kind of the same for me. I think they're really strong. You know, I'm a bit better against Protoss, but again, who wants to play against Neeb, right? So I have a good chance against both, to be honest, but I will need to play a bit better than today. I won't be happy with my performance today, but I think the result will depend on me rather than my opponent tomorrow.
I like those words. We'll see how tomorrow goes. Get some rest for today. He'll be playing tomorrow in that round of 8. We'll see him then. Nathanius, back to you.
Thank you again, Smix. Wonderful interview as always. And our Terran player climbs his way out of a bit of a sloppy series here, gentlemen.
Ay, Nate. I think our boy uThermal dodged a couple of bullets there, especially on Acid Plant as well. Not sure if Denver wasn't paying attention or if he just really wanted the jackpot connection. But damn, a couple of those burrowed banelings this series really should have had a different outcome.
Yeah, that was insane. I mean, it's one of those things where people always say, why don't people use more burrowed banelings? But the thing is, we, for the observers, we get this whole build-up. We're watching
and we focus on it all the time.
Yep. But if you look at the Zerg's vision, they can see about 1 centimeter on the screen. So you get very little warning. You get about 1 second to realize the units are there, detonate the banelings before you've missed your moment. And I think we saw that many times in the last game where there was a drop going on, Denver looked away, looked back, and the army had walked over the baneling mines.
And the counterattacks, it seemed like if he had been able to get that last big blow up on that final push on blue shift, he should have been able to swing things around.
There were 1 or 2 moments on blue shifts where we're like, that could be a good one, but that final one, when he had those 2 banelings on the ramp, when that big fight happened in the left bottom side, if he blows up those 2 banelings and he takes out those 26 Marines or so that walked over it, I think it's a different outcome in Game 5. But even asset plan, Nate, we were talking about it all the time in the green room. I don't know if he was looking at something else or if he just wanted more, like if he really wanted the ultimate connection, but it felt on asset plan, it really could have gone Denver's way as well. I'm really impressed with the performance of our Frenchman. uThermal said he felt he didn't play his best. That could be, but it always takes 2 to tango, and I really think that Denver played excellent.
Yeah.
Despite some missed opportunities, but still, to even get in those positions, you need to do a lot right.
Great series out of both of them, and that means uThermal will be moving on. Love what he said about how he's going to be the one that determines whether he beats his next opponent, because the next opponent for him will be a very tough one. 2 of our foreign competitors that have been competing in GSL this year, Raynor and Neeb, will be facing off in our final round of 16 match to determine who uThermal goes up against. There's no easy opponents left here, Pig.
No, this is we saved the most exciting match for last today, right? It's Raynor and Neeb. We've got the youngling, 16 years old, just allowed to compete in WCS for the first time this year. He's been doing incredibly well. And obviously, I mean, Neeb just made it to the semifinals and had a sick match against TY over there. He struggled a little bit yesterday, fresh off the plane after some delays, but he's rested now. And
long flight.
I can't wait to see what we're going to have in store
Nate,
at the end of the day.
one thing for you real quick. If I take a look at that bottom side of the bracket, I see 3 Terrans in a row.
And?
No, but I mean, how cool is that, Nate?
It's nice to actually get to see Terran players in WCS.
When is the last time we've seen that?
It's been a while.
3 Terrans in a row in a quarterfinal bracket of WCS. I think that's the first, guys. I've never seen that before.
I'm very happy to see that, because honestly, the Terrans, especially the American players, have been underperforming in WCS this year. But thank you, Kev. Looking out for me.
Oh, that's cool stuff. I mean, 3 Zergs, 3
That
Terrans.
last match was really good. I highly enjoyed that. I think that Denver should have won if he just detonated those Banes, but uThermal played very well. And you know what else is going to be so well and swell? Our next match, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go to a quick break. When we return, our final match of the day, it's going to be Neeb versus Raynor.